Doctors could be on the brink of a breakthrough.
Migraines.
How to control them.
Tame a migraine.
A severe migraine.
Throbbing, recurring headaches.
Given all the noise, navigating the migraine experience can be confusing and scary, but you do not have to do it alone. Welcome to the Migraine Guy Podcast, the official podcast of themigraineguy.com and theheadachereview.com. Now, here's your host.
All right, pod people. Well, I am sorry for the delay in the podcast. February just became exceedingly busy with work and some personal things that are going on, both with the health of a family member as well as just some stuff that's going on with my wife's job that required a lot of traveling and stuff. So things are moving and shaking over here at the Migraine Guy HQ, but we have a podcast today for you that is an interview. It's an interview with someone named Sarah Cairo. If you're in our Migraine Guy Facebook support group, you know Sarah as one of our moderators, as well as an occasional blogger at theheadachereview.com. And if you've either read her blogs or have been part of anything that she's been involved with in the Migraine Guy support group, you know she has lots of helpful advice as well as experience that makes her a good resource and a sounding board for any particular migraine issues that you might be having. So just finally getting her on the podcast. Probably should have done this sooner, but you know, she's also got some stuff in the works in her life, so schedules have been difficult to synchronize, but we finally did it. So that being said, Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So just for anybody who isn't familiar with you, hasn't read the blogs that you've done, or hasn't been a member of the Migraine Guy support group, or even if they have, just are curious about you and your migraine street cred, could you give us a little background into your history?
So I had headaches for a really long time in my young adulthood, but it wasn't until after I was 1 year postpartum that I fully went chronic. So I have a diagnosis of chronic intractable migraine, and I've gone through a lot of medications and processes to kind of try a bunch of different things. But I kind of went through the progression of someone who had headaches, episodic headaches, took a lot of ibuprofen, tried a lot of different kind of first-line defense things that just didn't end up working. And then after some kind of like physical traumas, birth, and then I had surgery, I went chronic. And that was about 2.5 years ago. From there, it got pretty bad. I had a very explosive, like rapid onset of being chronic. It was honestly just like I felt the change from one day. Something changed in my brain chemistry, and I got to the point where I could not work. I was having daily severe headaches to the point of like crying. Nothing was working. I needed a lot of help from my husband just to take care of our kiddo, who was an infant back then. So I've had the experience of like losing a job, being homebound, having it completely take over my life, and then finally, you know, with talking broad strokes, eventually finding treatment, seeing improvement, incremental improvement, and then finding the right combination of meds.
So what were the treatment options that you found that were helpful after your doctor misdiagnosed you?
It started out kind of in a panic mode where I actually went to the ER a couple times, just out of basically terror, not knowing what was going on. In the ER, I got an MRI. That came back clean. It was actually the ER doctors that finally got me to my current neurologist. Sadly, the PCP that I was working with before, he really didn't believe what I was saying. Because I have a history of anxiety and I had postpartum depression, that I feel like really made him not believe. He really thought that I was depressed and that, if I would take antidepressants and treat the depression, that would help my head.
Right.
So that really held me back at first, and it took kind of getting to that rock bottom point of being in pain every single day for me to be able to finally get through to somebody in the medical profession. Luckily, the people at the ER, they couldn't help me because I'm pretty resistant to most medication. We have referral. So when I finally got to my current neurologist, from there, we started the whole med game. Okay, this is what normally works. let's try different doses. Okay, that's not working. Let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really hard process for me because I have never been somebody who would have thought that I would take a daily medication. You know, that's where I was coming from starting out, where I thought that the whole idea of that was horrible. Like, I was in my late 20s. That shouldn't be me. It was kind of my mindset, and I had this viewpoint that medications were like basically poison, like pharmaceutical companies are predatory and all that stuff. So it was really, really hard for me to get started on the whole path to medication.
All right, everyone. The audio, as you could probably tell, was a little funky. I'm not exactly sure what happened with my audio recording software, because when I was talking to Sarah over Facebook Messenger, things were very crystal clear and there weren't any spikes in the audio. So I am working on editing the rest of the interview so that the audio is better. So make sure to check out next week's podcast for the remainder of Sarah's interview. I just need a little more time to edit the audio, but as you can tell, she probably has a story that is very relatable to many of our migraine listeners out there. The process of becoming diagnosed appropriately and then finding a medication regimen that actually begins to help can be a multi-year process, and Sarah's story is evidence of that. But her story is also one of hope. She, as we'll get to next week, has found lots of ways to regain parts of her life that migraines consumed for a number of years. So make sure to check out next week's podcast to hear the rest of Sarah's interview. Of course, if you're listening for the first time, I hope you'll hit subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcast on. But if you're checking this out on iTunes or Apple Podcast, I hope you'll take a moment now that you've heard this podcast to go ahead and give us a 5-star review. And a few brief comments on why you like the podcast. If you're new, please go back and check out the other 49 podcasts that we have so far. Lots of good stuff there, lots of good migraine news, migraine tips, recommendations on supplements, and things to do in your migraine life to try and help alleviate some of the pain, and so hopefully be able to regain some control over your life. As I always say every week, if you need a support group, head over to Facebook if you're on Facebook, and just search the Migraine Guy support group. We've got over 1,000 people now. We are like not quite at 2,000, but we're on the scales are about to tip towards 2,000. We're about to hit our 1,500th members. So make sure to head over there if you need a group that understands and will listen and try to help you find some answers, if only that you are not alone. And that, of course, is the primary mission of the podcast, of the YouTube channel, of all the social media stuff, is so that you, as a chronic migraine sufferer, a pain patient, just know that you're not alone, because pain can be very isolating, as I'm sure you know. So that's it for this week's podcast, and I will talk to you next week. If you want to help keep everything that the Migraine Guy does free, then you can become a patron over at the website patreon.com. That's Patreon.com. Patreon lets people contribute funds to other people whose work they value. Becoming a patron does things for me, such as allowing me to buy new products so that I can do product review videos so that you know whether or not a given migraine product actually works before you buy it. It also helps me do things like upgrade the microphones and cameras for both the YouTube channel and this podcast. And more importantly, it helps me be accountable to you, my migraine community. You can pledge as low as $1 a month if you want to, and every single dollar does help. Just head over to patreon.com/themigraineguy to become a patron today.